So I'm excited to be talking about our topic today, um, about what it means to nurture your mental health while you're dating. Okay, that's totally fine, Laura. I'm sorry you have a bad signal. For some reason, we do as well. But yeah, absolutely. You can participate in the chat. We'll have that chat up. So yes, absolutely. It's not a problem. So let's talk about our adventures in dating and what we do to try and take care of our mental health because it's very important. I don't know, dating, even before the pandemic, dating has definitely been an adventure.
I agree.
And I have noticed, I don't know if you guys have as well, but I have noticed that since the pandemic, it's become a lot more stressful. It's become a lot more, for some reason, people ghost more. There's less communication. There's more, I don't know if it's necessarily them share expectations, but it's more of a, it's almost like a spectrum, right? I'm either here for just a hookup or to get married tomorrow, and it's like the people in the middle. Yeah. I don't understand what's happening.
I think that I want to say that was already kind of happening before the pandemic, but maybe not, it didn't force people, obviously, right, to connect more like online and stuff like that, because when the pandemic happened, it kind of forced people to use technology more to their advantage. But I think, you're so right. I think it started off like before the pandemic, and that pandemic just kind of facilitated, I guess, the push of doing things like more online, more virtual, and then things like ghost super easy to do.
Well, I don't know.
I think that was already like.
Yeah, the ghosting thing is obviously not something new that the pandemic has birthed. Welcome, Wendy. But it's definitely, I think it's changed the rules of dating. I think that it's changed how we look at dating. People are, and I know that Diana, you and I have talked about this before, but it's at least we say, when I'm on a dating app and I start talking to someone, I'm very clear about the fact that I'm dating with intention, right? I'm not here to A, B, or C. I'm not here to definitely waste my time because that's not what I'm looking for at this time. But it's also become very stressful because, you have that ghosting situation. So then it's very easy to go down that rabbit hole of, did I say the wrong thing? Did I not respond quickly enough? Did I respond too long? Did I, whatever it might be. And so am I just having a conversation with someone? We're not even touching yet on meeting up with them, whether it's just for a quick coffee, tea, an actual dinner date, doing an activity. There have now become so many more layers to dating. I was joking with, I don't remember if it was you, Diana, but I know I was joking with someone that, before it was, do you have dips and do you do that? And now it's like, are you also vaccinated? It's one of those like pre-date kind of questions. Whereas before, that was not a thought, right? And I have noticed, honestly, that dating has become stressful. I honestly don't enjoy it.
Off a little bit on the last piece.
Dating is definitely very slow. Dating is not enjoyable. And it's not, I actually decided this week to get off all, but I was on one app and it was just becoming very time consuming. It was actually kind of embarrassing. You know, for instance, your iPhone gives you like your weekly report of how much what you've been on your phone for the week.
Yeah.
It was an embarrassing report, really, honestly. And to me, it was like, this is taking time away from things that I actually should be doing, which is care, which is, you know, working on whatever it is that I'm working on for work, or spending time with people that actually matter, instead of taking a chance on people that the probability of them ghosting very high. The probability of them not working out is very high, right? It's a huge investment, and it's not just a time investment. I believe there are other types of investment, including invest your mental health in dating.
Right. I, I think it also has to do a lot with what you're looking for. Um, and I think this also is going to relate back to taking care of your mental health while you're dating. Um, Looking for what you want, defining what you want, what you're looking for in someone, um, defining whether or not, or making that choice of whether or not you want to log online, go onto an online dating website, or if you're trying to do it the old fashioned way where you meet someone, right? That you met through a friend, or you meet them while you're out somewhere, you're introduced by them, or whatever the case may be. I think it also depends a lot on that. Um, as I know you and I have talked before, I'm not really into online dating. I tried it and I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely not for me. Um, and so I don't know that I want to say that that may make it right a lot harder to find someone that I may be looking for with the things that, I'm looking for, because now I'm expecting to meet them the old, right? Whereas maybe I did have a online, but when I gave that, this is probably not going to work out for me. And understanding that, right? And understanding, why is that not going to work out for me? What is it about it that I don't like, right? Like allowing myself to have that moment of reflection of what is it exactly that I'm looking for? What is it exactly? What are the things that I'm willing to bargain on? And what are the things that I'm not willing to bargain on? Because I think this is where mental health, nurturing your mental health, does play a role. When we don't really know what we're looking for, what we're expecting out of a partner, then we tend to just go and date without intention. And when we do that, then we run the risk of dating people who are not going to be a positive addition to our lives, right? And then they're not going to nurture our positive mental health, or they're not going to be good for our boundaries, or maybe they're going to have different limits than I do. All of those things, it's so important to, I know it's harder depending also, on many other factors like age and whether or not you have children and things like that. But I think it's so important to understand what it is that you're looking for, so that then you don't, I don't want to say you settle down.
Mhm.
But what I want to say is that you were not looking for just for the sake of having a partner.
Mhm.
And I think that that's very important to mental health, depending, of course, on what people may be dealing with.
Absolutely, boundaries. Even Laura commented boundary setting. Yes, knowing what you want when you're dating is very important as well, because I mean, and since you don't know, and that's okay, but you need to set boundaries for yourself. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be for a partner, but it's boundaries for yourself of saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to only spend so much time on a dating app, or I'm only going to spend so much time today talking to this person because I want to do other things, because I want to spend time with other people, because X, Y, or Z, right? Um, Even simple things like, and this is just me, right? I'm more of a let's chat on the app, then we'll text on a phone, then we're going to FaceTime, and then maybe we'll meet, right? Those are kind of like my steps. And I'm very comfortable with that because that's what works for me, and that is my boundary. And,
Mhm.
sometimes when I give people my number and they call me right away, I'm like, wait a second. You're not following my steps that I didn't tell you about, but you should know about, right? And
Right.
so, but that, again, that's what works for me. And I have noticed that, and I need to set limits on how much time I spend on the app. And I also need to be very mindful of when I'm going on the app. Am I going on the app when I'm bored? Am I, because I have noticed sometimes I even tell myself that is when I start swiping left a lot, I'm like, okay, I'm not in the right mindset because I'm just mindlessly swiping instead of paying attention to what I'm doing, because I'm bored, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm bored. So, that I really have to stop and say, okay, definitely being on this app right now is not going to be a good thing for my mental health. How about I do something that I actually enjoy doing? Like reading, like some self-care, like spending time with people like X, Y, or Z, right? So definitely boundary setting is extremely important. And then also realizing that, you know what, if you don't go on the app every day, it's okay.
Right. That takes me to, another point of, I don't know, where people's journeys are, but if I've dated before and I've had some experiences that are not the greatest, and then maybe now I'm ready to go get back into the dating game, whether it is online or in person, I think it's also when you start to care of your mental health, you start to see, right, the patterns that were there
Mhm.
before. You start to see kind of the type of person that you were leaning towards. Maybe you kind of had a type, or maybe you absolutely had a type. And I don't mean just a type physically, but, a personality type, um, someone with a very, very specific hobbies and things like that. And when you start to date again, and then you start to see you going back to old patterns, right? Having that opportunity to take care of your mental health will allow you to take that step back to
Mhm.
say, wait a minute, I'm only going back to the things that didn't work out for me before.
Mhm.
So this is not how I want things to go. And understanding that you have the power to say, this is not the type of person that I really want to date. This is not how I want the dates to go. I
Mhm.
want to things to go different. And so then you have the power to change that. When you're not nurturing your mental health, or when you haven't taken care of, some of the things that might have happened in the past, then you run the risk of going back, of not breaking that cycle, right? Of going back to that same cycle, whether it's online or whether it's in person. You're
Mhm.
going back to that cycle that you haven't gotten the opportunity to address.
Mhm.
And I think that is so important, because then if you're noticing that you're only on the app, when you're bored, or when you don't have anything else to do, then you're not doing it with intention, right? You're doing it
Mhm.
because it just gives you something else to do. And again, all important things to keep in mind when you are going in and dating, and getting to know someone, and being very firm, right, on what you want. Like some of the things you mentioned right now, it's like, well, they're calling me right away, I'm not okay with that. Although I haven't communicated that yet, it's still like an issue for me. Well, when we start to learn, like, okay, I need to start to communicate like my concerns here, like, then you're going to have a better result. Because one of the things that I always say is like, the other person is not a mind reader, right? And neither are we. We don't know what's going on. But when we are comfortable to address some things, then we know like, okay, we can address this, and that person isn't walking around blind to what the expectations are, and neither are we, right? We know what this person is expecting. We know if this is going to work out. We know if has the potential of going somewhere, because the expectations or just what the other person is looking for has been made very clear.
Right. No, and I think that that is a very good point. I have found, though, that there does seem to be certain ages where I don't know what it is that they want. Potential partners that I do match with, I'm very clear about what I'm looking for on this app. And I have found that a lot of them don't know what they want, which to me is very frustrating, because I know what I want. So the least that you can do is know what you want to see if we're compatible, right? Because otherwise, it's not my job to help you get to the point of realizing what it is that you want. And I'm not saying that, to say, okay, we're going to date for 6 months and then get married. No, that's not what I'm saying. Is my point is, are you on this app because you are looking to seriously date? Are you on this app because you're hoping for a fit that turns into a relationship? What is your purpose? What is your intention for being on this app? What are you looking for? It's a very clear question to me. What are you looking for? And now that I know what it is that you're looking for, you don't know, well, then maybe you're not okay for me, because I do know. And I really don't have patience to help you realize that. But again, that is just me. Another thing that
I'm sorry. I think, that that's such a good point, because at least my experience with a dating app, I went very specific, right? I'm very specific with some of the things that I want, not with everything, but there's certain things that are deal breakers for me. So when I went on to this dating app, it said all of like, sure, you can match with people and all of those things. And then you read someone's like bio, and it's saying all the right things, only to get to know the person and realize they're only looking for their next hookup and whatnot. It's not even like, that's not even serious. They're just like, they just want to find the next person to hook up with. Mm-hmm. And that's fine if that's what they want. That just doesn't align with what I want, but the bio didn't say the same thing.
I think that another thing that we also need to talk about is the fact that you brought up recently is, it's having the same meal but different packaging, right? I know that I've worked with a lot of couples where, or in, just individuals where it's like, why does X, Y, and Z seem to happen with every partner? And it's almost like a point of self-awareness. It's almost an opportunity for that person to say, okay, who is the common denominator in all of these situations, in all of these relationships, and of these encounters, and what is it that I'm attracting, right? What is it that I'm gravitating towards? I'm sorry, not for. Well, for as well, but towards. And for those of us that have experienced trauma, there's a lot going on, right? There's that fear of rejection, there's the fear of abandonment, there's fear of getting re-traumatized, there's fear of fill in the blank, whatever it might be. And that's very common. It's very, very common for people that have experienced trauma. And then, even if you haven't, but if you've experienced a lot of heavy relationships, also that fear of, am I going to end up alone? And am I okay being alone? right? Do I need a relationship to define me? Do I need a relationship to be happy? You know, one of the things
Right.
that I tell people that I am talking to is, you know, I'm not here to complete your happiness and you're not here to complete mine. I'm pretty happy. I'm
Right.
pretty satisfied. I've worked very hard to get to where I'm at right now. If anything, what you're going to do is enhance my happiness, but you're not going to complete me. You're not my half whatever. You are just going to hopefully be my partner and in many ways be my equal, not be a copy of who I am, but be my equal. In the things that matter, I need you to show up those things, right?
Right.
And that's one thing about relationships is how are we showing up to relationships?
You know, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think that for those of us who have experienced trauma in our lives, if we're not addressing that, if we're not, you know, maybe seeing a therapist, if we haven't worked through that, then that's going to come into our relationships, you know, those insecurities, maybe those triggers, they're going to come into the relationship and they're going to come into the dating world where that person is in. And that can cause for a lot of difficulty in dating. Not that it can't be successful, right? Because I think that there are people who have been successful, but it is being aware, right, that those triggers or that particular trauma doesn't have anything to do with that person. That this is a new person in your life, and that you need to be aware of what your triggers are and what, you know, what really you know, makes you probably feel different. And I also think I agree, although it took me some time to um, understand that concept that other people don't make you happy, that you have the power of choosing how your happiness works. Um, Rather than putting that on somebody else, like, oh, you know, I'm not happy with him, or I'm not happy with her and they don't make me happy. Well, they're not supposed to, right? Like, it's your own happiness. You have the power to decide how that goes. um, and how you show up to a relationship. This is where I was watching this show called Married at First Sight, I think it was.
Mm.
No, I'm sorry, Love is Blind on Netflix, where people meet and they're behind, you know, they're separated by a wall. They don't get to see, you know, who the other person is. A lot of the times, you know, when they were deciding to get married, it was like, oh, I want somebody to complete me. I want somebody to, like, you know, be my other half. I want those things. Was like, um, you're you're not going to probably feel complete, you know, with the other person. um the happiness, if you're not happy, make you happy or make you less happy. If you're already not happy, then you're not happy. And so I when I was watching those episodes, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it really does shine a light, you know, on how you show up in a relationship or how you show up in dating. To answer Laura's question here, I haven't had a whole lot of success dating the old fashioned way. But what I will say is, I have been single for a really long time. And the reason why I was single for a really long time is because I kept making some very poor choices. I was dating people who were not compatible with me. I was dating people who wanted something different than I did. And then, you know, I was kind of hoping that they would change. Maybe they would like me enough to make a change. And then when those things didn't happen, then the relationship somewhat turned abusive. So I decided, you know what, I think I need to take a step back, because at some point I said, I need to look within and find out what is going on, that I keep attracting the same type of man, right? So I've been single for a really long time. I've dated, and um I have been very open and honest with what I want. I know what I want, I know what I'm looking for. And if I don't get it from that other person, I also have no problem walking away. But that took a really long time to feel comfortable with, because I am in my mid 30s, and some people will probably say, what is wrong with you? Why are you just not, settling for that person? They look like they're a good person. Well, that's great, but I'm looking for someone that I want to share, that I could share my life with, and that, I can grow with, and I can share certain things that are very important to me. And I can't do that with this person. So I will wait. I'm sure that person is out there somewhere. Um, but I do have a lot of hope that I'm gonna find someone. So I think that's kind of what keeps me going. And one of the things that Dr. Yokara said is, I had to make that tough decision to say, what if I never find that person? Am I asking for too much? Am I asking for too little? What is it that I'm asking for that may seem impossible? And when I look back at the things that I was asking for, I'm like, I'm asking for, I'm not asking for them to have anything like crazy. So if that percent doesn't come, am I content being alone? And when I came down to the conclusion of being content being alone, then dating didn't really seem like a priority anymore. It's something I want. It's something that I'm open to. My friends that send me, they will set me up on dates all the time, and I will go. I've been on blind dates. I've been on, I meet the person, and then I go out on a date. So I can say I've dated, and I feel like I am comfortable in that setting. Um, so I have been put in a good place there, but it's when we get to know each other, the expectations are different. And um and then I am very open to say, like, look, if this isn't what you want, just let me know, so that I'm not sitting here expecting something from you you're not willing to give, and then I can do the same. Um so I have had no problem standing up for what I really want in a partner, or what I'm looking for in a partner. Because I do want marriage, I do want children, and in a lot of that, are like, some people are not interested in marriage anymore. Some people do not want to get married at all. Some people are like, oh, I already have kids, I'm not trying to have any more. So then I already know, okay, then this isn't going to go. We can be friends, but I want kids and I want marriage, and I want someone that's open to that. Um, so I haven't had a lot of success in actually being in relationships, dating the old fashioned way, but I have had a lot of fun, getting to know people. And that has allowed me to get to know myself, has allowed me to see what I'm comfortable with, what I'm not comfortable with. Um, Maybe something was presented that I never thought about, and it gives me the opportunity to decide where I stand on it. And then it gives me an opportunity to reflect, to really looking for in a partner is really what I want. And I will wait for whoever that person is. They're somewhere out there. But I can't say it's been like horrible, or like that I've had like horrible experiences. Um, but I also go in looking at it like, what can I learn from this, and what's the positive experience of this of this date, or dating this person. So it can get tricky. That led me to try online dating, and I know Dr. Deveras and I talked about it a lot. And she was very encouraging to say, you should try it, you should try it, you should try it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. Let's see how this goes. And I didn't really like it. I kind of put on there like exactly what I wanted and what I was looking for. Um, and sure, I matched with some people, but it was weird for me. Like, what, are we just gonna text back and forth on this app, or message back and forth on this app? And then there's some guys that were like, oh, you want to come over? Like, come over where? Like, I just met you 2 seconds ago. Like, oh, come over, let's drink at my house. Like, okay, no, I don't really want
No.
to, no, I don't really want to do that, you know?
Not
So,
looking to get murdered tonight.
no thanks, you know? So I knew that I just knew it just didn't work for me. But the old fashioned way, you know, I was really like nervous about being set up with like people that my friends thought were potential candidates. And it is nerve wracking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, well, let's meet at a neutral location and whatnot. And it was fun. I mean, the experience was fun. I got to have some great conversations with some people, but I also knew that, you know, we were incompatible. Some I knew right off the bat, and some I found out along the way, you know. But dating itself is tricky, right? Whether you do it the old fashioned way, whether you do it online, it's tricky. It's kind of like you're taking a risk every single time that you do it.
Absolutely, regardless of how you do it. The online thing, you know, it has both positives and negatives, right? Because in a way, you can kind of vet someone through an online app, and you do have that time where you can get to know them a little bit more before actually meeting. But then there's also the potential of getting catfished, or, you know, a number of other things could happen. So not that you can't get catfished in person, because wasn't there a reason Netflix show the Tinder Swindler or something like that? I have not watched it yet.
You haven't watched it? Oh, you need to watch that. You need to watch that.
No, I've actually been, this is going completely off topic, of course, but I would recommend, and it is kind of connected to Dean. I watched The Principles of Pleasure, and we'll have to do an episode, a webinar masterclass about it as well. It has some amazing points. It did talk about relationships, and while I was watching, I was thinking about, okay, you know, these are some of the things that we need to think about and consider when talking about the topic today. One of the things that they did bring up is, you know, besides expectations and having boundaries, is, you know, how are my beliefs regarding not just family, not just a partnership, but also when it comes to sex, right? When it comes to my role in that person's life, when it comes to my role in my own life, you know, am I just seeing myself as certain labels? For instance, do I just see myself as a mom? Do I just see myself as someone that has a job, or somebody that owns a company, or a sister, or, you know, a daughter, or whatever it is? But at what point as a woman do I see myself as me? And at what point do I give myself permission, or even allow myself to say, you know what, these are the things that I know I need in a relationship, and not be afraid to talk about them, not be afraid to have those conversations, right? It's funny because, again, this is a show mostly about pleasure, but they were talking about the fact that people are not comfortable talking about sex. And it is one of the things that, at least when I work with couples, it's one of the things that brings them to counseling. It's one of those things that if you're not having conversations about it, and it's not kind of conversation that you have once and you're done with it, it's an ongoing conversation, because our bodies change, because our moods change, because the world changes, right? What I wanted, what I needed in a relationship from a partner, very different in my 20s, definitely changed in my 30s. And now that I'm no longer in my 30s and entering my 40s, it's completely different, because I am more comfortable in my skin, because I feel more confident saying, you know what? No, I am not okay with bringing this into the relationship. I am not okay with accepting this from my partner. And this is exactly what I need. And I'm a very strong advocate of, hey, if I'm bringing financial stability, emotional intelligence, family values, XYZ to the table, the negotiation table, the least that I can expect is for somebody to bring those same things, right? And I am confident enough to say, you know what? If I bring this, then I want you to bring the same things because those are important. Those are going to be the foundations of this relationship.
I think I agree. I think that especially women are not very comfortable talking to men about what their needs are when we're talking about sex. I think amongst friends, right? We're comfortable talking girl talk. Yeah, let's talk sex all you want because it's girl talk. But the minute we need to sit and have this tough conversation, when it's wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and then I'm still waiting for mine, then that's a tough conversation to have, right? With somebody, like, what are you looking for when it comes to sex? Because you should know also what you're looking for there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should not just, like you said, you should not just know what you're looking for in family values and in personality types, or what their hobbies are and things like that, those expectations, but also, what do you want with sex? What does this look like for you? What is it that you're looking for? Because I think a lot of people want to brush it off as it's no big deal, like you can work with it. It is a big deal. It ends up being a big deal once you're in the relationship, right? Because again, you need to have clear understanding, clear boundaries, right? Clear expectations of what is happening. I just read Laura's message, and I'm really sorry that happened to you, Laura. And I don't know if you read it, Dr. De Cares, but Laura says, it is tricky. Thank you. A colleague set me up on a date. We met, but we're in a great match. Turns out he's dating a man now. And of course, I'm happy. He's happy. And again, right, it's like taking that risk. It's taking that risk. Actually, I went out on a date. My friend set me up on a date with this guy. And I said, well, how do you know? I'm kind of started asking a few questions. And she said, oh, he's one of my friend's brother, and, his girlfriend cheated on him. And so, he's like trying to move on. Okay, all right. Well, how long ago was this? It's like, oh, this was a few months ago. And I said, okay, like, sure, I'll be open to going on a blind date. And I asked her what he did for a living. Did he have any kids? Had he been married before? And, all of the answers were no. And I was like, okay, not that there would have been anything wrong with, with those things. I just wanted to know a little bit more about him. And I went on, I met him at Starbucks and had a great conversation face to face. On texting, the conversation was a little weird, but face to face was great. But something seemed off, and I was aware that something didn't really sit well. And so in those conversations, he right off the bat started talking about how he was having some financial difficulties, how, and he had a pretty decent job and he didn't live on his own, so it was like, wait a minute, what do you mean you're having financial difficulties, Um, and as time went on, I realized this isn't like he wanted to hang out all the time, which was great. I was open to that. But the financial difficulty conversation kind of kept going, right? And then wanted to invite me over to his family like on week 1. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea that I go. And I already started to see that some things just didn't align with what I wanted. But what really like set the tone is when I heard my friend say, hey, are you guys still talking? Because he invited his ex-girlfriend out. He took his ex-girlfriend to get a massage. And I thought, oh, okay, this is what's not sitting well. And he was talking about having financial difficulties to pay for an ice cream. And here you are buying a massage. Like, okay. So I was comfortable with walking away. And then he came back and tried to throw it in my face and said, well, you're the one who walked away and you're probably talking to somebody else already. And I was comfortable enough to say, no, you were entertaining your ex-girlfriend still. So I heard they got married last October. So we knew where that was. We knew where his mind was at and where that was going. So it is tricky, Laura. It is really like difficult. But again, right, I didn't feel like it was a loss for me. I got to know him. He was a nice person, but clearly his heart was where his heart was at, you know? And I knew exactly what I wanted. But again, I never get to have that conversation, right, as far as what I'm looking for and other things, because some things are like clear straight off the bat. In going back to your point, Dr. D, I think it is important that as women, we start to speak up about what we're looking for in pleasure, right? Like some of us ladies are not ready to go the minute they start kissing on us and whatnot. We're not nowhere near that. But if we start to talk about, you know, like, hey, we may need a little bit more foreplay so I can get to that level. I'm not there yet. You can't just be like, let's go. It doesn't work that way. It may work that way for you, but it doesn't work that way for me, right? And because I think, you know, and I know that culture sometimes plays a big role here, and, you know, whatever culture you grew up in, the woman is just supposed to avoid the pleasure, right? Not talk about the pleasure, not acknowledge the pleasure. The pleasure is typically only for the man, right? Which no, there's pleasure in women too. There's pleasure in women too, and there's and we should advocate for our pleasure because it is important. And I don't know, Dr. D, you can probably emphasize on this, but a lot of the times when couples come to therapy, one of the topics is sex. And typically the woman is the one that's not, it comes off as maybe the man not being very happy, but the lady is not very happy, which is why the man's not very happy. So if he's not giving her what she's looking for, then she just not having sex. And then it creates conflict. And I could be wrong on that. It's just
No, absolutely. What I find very ironic is that one of the, because let's be honest, it is very important, but one of the most important things about a relationship, besides communication, besides trust, besides compatibility, is the fact that we don't really get taught or trained on how to not just please ourselves, but also please our partner, right?
right.
Like that show was saying, you know, we get our education through friends, we get education through porn, we get education through what we see in movies or, you know, any type of media, which is very unrealistic because it doesn't work that way, right? If you think about it, a romance movie, in an hour, 30 minutes, they meet, they match, they're perfect, and they end up together. So
Right.
without having those really difficult conversations of, you know, how are we going to handle finances? How are we going to talk about sex in a healthy way, in a way that, you know, I'm open to hearing suggestions from you. I'm open to learning about you and from you. And I'm open to make changes so that I can please you and you can please me. And it doesn't become this, well, because you didn't do this, then I'm not going to do that, right? Because then like, okay, is this a competition? Did we forget what the end goal was? And then, you know, coming to mental health, we don't talk about mental health. You know, one of the things that I have started thinking is, how do you handle stress? What do you do with your anxiety? What do you do when you're feeling depressed? What are some things that maybe I should look out for, or maybe I should know because you're going through something difficult? How to support you? What can I do for you? Right? So these are all.
I think you're right. I think these are all things to consider, right? Because the way that person handles stress is going to determine how you handle stress, is going to determine if it affects the way that you handle stress. And I think it also, I want to say something about like codependency or even dependency in itself, right? When you're in those moments of trying to figure it out, like how is this person going to depend on you to figure out their stress for you? I mean, I expect you to figure out their stress for them. Is this person going to depend on you to figure stuff out? If this person is like going through a stressful situation and they're telling you about it, are they going to expect you to fix it, and then put that stress on you? And those are just some of the things, right, that come up when you're getting to know someone. If they're in a financial situation, then are they going to expect you to figure out that financial situation? And then we get into, right, who's paying for what? Should there be separate bank accounts? Should there be the one bank account? All of those things, I think, are things to figure out while you're dating, not right before you're going to walk down the aisle, right? Because at that point, you've already made a decision that this person works for you. And then when you get into the marriage and you decide they want, they don't want the same bank account, or they want the same bank account and that's not what works for you, then that's a problem. And then you realize, they're not willing to take the time to please you sexually how you are pleasing them sexually, then, those are all like red flags.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find very interesting when working with couples is a lot of times I hear from both partners of she's mad and I don't sex. And so it's like, wait a second, these are two completely different things. Why are we, and you see this again in TV shows, in movies, and on the screen, she gets mad or he gets mad, I'm gonna, withhold sex. And it's like, okay, we really need to stop throwing these tantrums of, if I'm mad, I'm not gonna do this for you. No, let's talk about the fact that I'm mad. And usually when I'm mad, I'm not feeling sexual. I'm not feeling loving. I'm not feeling whatever, because I'm mad and I need to process and work through my anger. And if, as my partner, you're not helping me do that, all you're really doing is just feeding my anger. All you're really doing is feeding my stress, right? And so when we're talking about a partner and we're talking about, and we're just talking about like anxiety, stress, and depression without even getting to other diagnoses, right. When I'm spiraling, when I'm going that really dark rabbit hole, are you going to be the person that I know that I can come home to, or I know that I call and say, hey, babe, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix. I don't need you to do anything other than just listen. And that shows me that you have my back. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm not asking you to give me, mansplain anything or give me any solutions. I'm spiraling. I just need to know that you're there for me, right? And a lot of times we don't have those conversations because we're scared. We're scared to show people our messy sides. We're scared to show people our unstable side, right? We're scared, especially as strong, independent men, we're scared to fall apart.
Yeah.
We really are. And, one of the things that in witnessing, for instance, a almost 22-year-old son and his girlfriend, she's 20. She's very comfortable falling apart all the time. And my son has so much patience. And I'm not saying that because he's my son, but his personality, he has a lot of patience. And sometimes I get jealous because I feel like I've never allowed myself to fall apart that way. I have never been comfortable with a partner to be able to fall apart that way. And so, that's something that also gave me self-awareness of, does that mean that I'm not allowing my partners past these walls that I have set up due to the trauma that I experienced or the past relationships that I've had? Is this something that I need to work on myself? And then am I willing to let somebody in the future come through these walls, come to the door of my walls, and will I allow myself to fall apart? But I think that it is important to talk about mental health. I do ask, people that talk to, what do you do for self-care? And it's very common for men to be like, what's self-care? It's not something that only women do. It's something that people do, regardless of your gender or sex. It's just something that you should be doing for yourself. If you're not doing it for yourself, maybe you call it something else. Usually men call it a hobby, right? But
Right.
it's, let's talk about these. When you get stressed, do you stop talking? Because when I stop talking, I shut down. When I'm stressed, I want to be left alone to hear out my stuff. I don't need anybody's opinion. I don't need anybody's sarcasm. I don't need anybody's comments. Let me figure stuff. When I'm done figuring stuff out, I will come back, right? I will rejoin this. But obviously that's sometimes unrealistic because you can't just say, hey, I'll be back in a couple of days.
Right. But you
most
can
people don't.
communicate that, right? Like you can communicate that and say, I'm really upset right now, or I'm really bothered right now, and I just need some time to like figure myself out. And I'd really appreciate it if you just gave me that space, right? Because it's also about feeling safe in a relationship, safe enough to say, like, hey, I'm really, really angry and I don't want to say something I don't mean. So I want to just walk away right now, maybe go to the other room, and I just want to just chill for a little bit. And when I'm ready, I can come back when I have more of a clear mind. Which I think, and I don't know if Laura has tried this, but I think finding out what your love language is also very important. And I know you were, Dr. Decares, you were the one who brought this up to me when, a while back, because that's also going to be very telling on how you communicate, not only how you love, but how you receive love and how you communicate. In the times where you feel very loved and in the times where you don't feel so loved. It's going to be very, very telling of how things would work for you. And there is a quiz out there. There's also a small, easy book to read about that, but there's an easy quiz that you can take out there and find out what your love language is. And I say this because, Dr. D, to your point, if for example, if words of affirmation are it's probably my love language, I am seeking for those words of affirmation, right? When need to I need to hear that, I need to feel that, right, from my partner, where my partner maybe the love language is quality time. They're probably not going to be telling me a whole lot of things, but the fact that they're spending time with me is how I know, right? How they're showing me how they love. But if I'm upset and I need some time apart and they have this valuable time ready and available for me, they can be like, oh my gosh, like she's really upset. It's understanding yourself, understanding that you need to communicate with the person as well, just like that person needs to communicate with you, understanding what your love language is, understanding how you communicate. It is just so important. Yes, you can just Google love languages, and it'll come up. And it'll allow you to take a quiz. I think it has, like, if you're single or if you're married, and if you're a teenager, stuff like that, it'll allow you to do that. I think Dr. Lucares just put that link there. It takes some time to fill out the questions and what your love language is. And you probably may have already an idea, maybe you don't, of what that love language is. And then the book gives you some examples and things like that. I think it's maybe like $7 on Amazon or something. It's not very expensive and it's very easy to read. But it really allows us to better communicate, right? When we know what our love language is and the other person's love language is, we know how to better communicate that, right? Maybe someone whose love language is words of affirmations, they're probably going to want to talk out the problem. And you're like, I don't want to hear it. So it's understanding those differences, right? In communicating so that it is clear to the other person that right now is just not a good time to talk, or right now it's the perfect time to talk.
I think though that overall, and only because we have a few minutes left, doing self-care more than the dating aspect is extremely important, right? Again, looking out for your mental health is extremely important. If you need to take a break from dating, if you need to take a break from dating apps, if you need to take a break from just talking to potential people, it's okay to do that. It ultimately, if you are not in a good place, if you are not, and if your emotional resources, if your emotional bank account does not have enough deposits, you're not going to be able to show up to the relationship. You're not going to be able to show up to the date. You're not going to be able to show up for the conversation in a healthy way. And then that just means that you're going to continue to repeat patterns that have caused you to have unhappy or even relationships that were not satisfying, right? Relationships that did not give you what you wanted, give you what you needed. Just ultimately that they were not healthy. And, you know, a lot of times what happens is when we start dating someone, we want to do everything. We want to give our time. We want to spend time with them. We want to invest in them. And a lot of times as women, we lose ourselves in that, right? We lose our sense of identity. I work with a lot of clients that when they start dating, you know, it's about going out as much as possible and spending as much time together, and finding things that, because it's so delicate in the very beginning, you know, finding things that you're compatible with and finding, you know, activities that you're going to do. And a lot of times that takes away from engaging in self-care. A lot of times it takes away from doing things that are really to help you maintain and nurture your mental health, which is utterly important. And again, it's going to depend very heavily on how you show up to dating overall.
Yep, I completely agree. I know we're out of time here, but I think not losing yourself in a relationship, still being able to be yourself and still, you know, have your likes and your loves and your hobbies and your self-care and your friends and things like that is so important. That may be a podcast for another day. But really not losing yourself in a relationship, because I think a lot of the times as women that does happen. I'm sure it happens to men as well, but it's so common to see it in women that all of a sudden is whatever our significant other wants, whatever he wants, however he wants, whenever he wants, you know, in every aspect of the relationship. And then when we come in to try to say, oh, well, I want to go hang out with my friends, it's all of a sudden an issue. And those are just, you know, small things, but they're things that eventually make a difference. So I completely agree with you. We'll probably have to have another conversation on not losing yourself in a relationship, because that is such a big topic.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've had a really good conversation. Thank you for everybody that has joined us and is watching. We're going to have a lot more conversations about mental health and definitely self-care. We have some webinars coming up, so we invite you to watch them or show up for them. Thank you for participating in the chat. And yeah, good luck at dating, and definitely nurture your mental health.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing night, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.